If you've ever wondered what really makes egg donation or surrogacy fall apart, it's not the paperwork or the protocols. It's the mismatched expectations and communication styles that lead to the small misunderstandings that quietly grow into big problems.
Right, but see, there the often where like that mismatch comes into play is again in the matching, right? People are very responsive because they're in the beginning, oh my gosh, she really likes me. Oh, they really like me. Let's, this is really working out. I just got a text message like about something and it's very exciting. But then when you start to get into the nitty gritty of it, it starts to get a little bit much like, well, did you reschedule the appointment? Or why did you reschedule the appointment? And then maybe she kind of doesn't want to answer right away because it's like I did, but I don't, like I have to look back. I don't, or I didn't yet. Like I'm just not even going to answer because I'm just going to make her anxious.
That's Rachel Goldberg, a licensed therapist and perinatal mental health expert who specializes in infertility and third party reproduction. Her work has been featured in Vogue, Women's Health, and Scary Mommy. And today, she's revealing the hidden dynamics that cause miscommunication in surrogacy relationships and how to fix them before they spiral.
So secure is what you aim for, and that's the one where you trust that the other person has good intentions, that the other person is going to come through. You communicate really well.
Inside this conversation, you'll learn the three most common mistakes intended parents and surrogates make when setting expectations, how to avoid misunderstandings before they start, and a weekly check in structure that builds trust and connection. So, whether you're exploring egg donation, preparing for a surrogacy match, or simply trying to understand your role in assisted reproduction, this episode will give you the clarity, support, and confidence to move forward. Enjoy. So, Rachel, I really have been really looking forward to this because I think one of the hardest parts of a surrogacy journey for both the surrogates and intended parents isn't, I mean, yes, there's the paperwork, there's the medical stuff, but part of it is just like figuring out how to communicate. Did that text have too many emojis? Was that too much information? Was that not enough information? So you work with so many people in third-party reproduction, and I know you see this all the time. So I'm kind of curious, what kinds of, just right off the bat, what kinds of expectations do you think IPs and surrogates, should be talking about early on, just to kind of set up that healthy relationship?
Yes. In general, of course, the big things you want to talk about off the bat are, I mean, not off the bat, but like very soon in, are the
Sure,
things like termination and,
of course.
vaccines, like the things that are going to be real relevant in the journey. But
Right.
in terms of, and what I think you're asking is communication, it is difficult because what ends up happening is people go into it with this idea of what it's going to look like, but
Mm-hmm.
remember you're mostly going into it with a stranger unless it's a known person. And
Right.
what happens during the matching process and in the very beginning is people are enthusiastic about each other, everyone's on their
Sure.
best behavior, nothing big has happened, nothing traumatic has happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just run of the mill. So everyone's excited and everyone thinks this is going to be a very fruitful relationship. Everyone's on their best behavior.
Yeah.
And then, time goes by. And even if nothing big happens, time goes by and
Mm-hmm.
relationships start to shift because people start to go back to their normal lives.
Yeah.
People start to show up in the way that they show up in just relationships in general, right?
It's
So
honeymoon phase, and then now we're back
getting
from our
in.
honeymoon. Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about too, like a friendship or a romantic relationship, especially, right? Like oftentimes in the very beginning, there's like the fireworks and the sparks, and but then people go back to their normal lives, and then you start to see how they really show up in a relationship.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so I think this is kind of an extension of that. And it's very hard to know in the very beginning what it's going to really look like. So you really want to try to suss out the way their personality is, the way they react to certain things. Are they quick responders? Do they write long novels? Are they someone who is needs to know the answer now, or are they just tell me when kind of thing? I think just by knowing those little things, they seem so small, but they actually can make a huge difference in the relationship, right? So if you have a gestational carrier who is more laid back and just tell me when it comes through, or just tell me when the answer to the latest results or something, great. She's not sitting back thinking about it. She knows that it will come through when it comes through. And perhaps there's a different gestational carrier who is like on pins and needles waiting, and she's thinking, well, if the results didn't come back, it must be bad, and then she's like bombarding the case manager, or why aren't they calling me, like obviously they didn't like me, or obviously my scan came back bad. So, and it's nothing to her, it's nothing bad, she's not a bad person because she does this, and the other person's not bad because or aloof because they're more laid back. It's just a different style of how people operate, right? It's just a different way of how people are in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Which it's so super helpful to have those conversations. I know one of the questions that we ask our intended parents and surrogates, we're like, how do you want to receive bad news? Do you want me to call you? Do you want to text just so you can talk about it, have your time and then we'll talk about it later? But I think, yeah, those questions and knowing kind of that temperament is really helpful, not only for, a case manager in a clinic, but for that IPGC relationship of, hey, I know she's going to take her time. She's going to get to it when she gets to it. And then, responding accordingly and just knowing that about each other.
Right. But see, the often where like that mismatch comes into play is again in the matching, right? People are very responsive because they're in the beginning, oh my gosh, she really likes me. Oh, they really like me. Let's, this is really working out. I just got a text message like about something and it's very exciting. But then when you start to get into the nitty gritty of it, it starts to get a little bit much like, well, did you reschedule the appointment? Or why did you reschedule the appointment? And then maybe she kind of, doesn't want to answer right away because it's like, I did, but I don't, like I have to look back. I don't, or I didn't yet. Like, I'm just not even going to answer because I'm just going to make her anxious. Or, if you have a gestational carrier who maybe has something happen during the pregnancy, nothing crazy, but like maybe she's spotting a little bit and, she feels, I just kind of want to get this checked out before I reach out to them and worry them. I know that if I reach out, they're going to like call me incessantly. They're going to want to FaceTime. They're going to, so again, it's just this like back and forth. But of course, if you're an IP, you want to know that she's spotting, right? So it's a very just hard, nuanced situation where you're trying the best you can, but also you're kind of honoring who you are in relationships at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think taking the time to know that about yourself, I think so many times, like you said, everybody's on that best behavior. Everybody wants you to like each other. And it is important in that, to not have a mismatch of, hey, I love that you're, whatever they want, whatever she wants, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's so sweet. But let's really be introspective. I think you write so thoughtfully about attachment styles. So for someone new to that idea, can you walk us through like those three main styles and how they show up in this type of relationship, especially when the intended parents and surrogates are coming in with different ways of relating to stress and, or uncertainty?
Yeah. So attachment theory, I'm going to explain it in a way that people first really resonate, which is usually between romantic relationships. It's the way it starts in childhood, but I think when people really start to pay attention to it, it's later in romantic relationships. So there's kind of like a way you can kind of gauge the type. And I want to stress that it's not static. So people can show up differently in different relationships. It can also change over time. Mm-hmm. It can change based on what's happening in their life. It's kind of like a response to stress in a way, stress in a relationship, uncertainty really. And what is surrogacy? Uncertainty, right? So
right.
Okay, so there's actually 4 types, but I would say the main three are secure, which is what we all would like in life. Then there's anxious, avoidant, and then there's one that's a mix of anxious and avoidant. It's called preoccupied attachment.
Okay.
That one's a little bit more nuanced, and I can get into it in a sec. But so secure is what you aim for, and that's the one where you trust that the other person has good intentions, that the other person is going to come through. You communicate really well. When there is like a rift, you're not afraid to bring it up and to just communicate about it, thinking the other person is going to be very reasonable and have your interest and in their interest in mind. It's a very, it's an approach of safety of, I know this is safe. I know I'll be able to handle this. I know that they are reasonable people. I know we can work this through. Yes, this does not feel good, but also we can work it out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The anxious attachment is the one. So think about in a relationship where you are in a new relationship and you're hoping you're really excited. You're hoping it's going to go really well. and maybe the person is not responding to your text message. You said something like, oh, I really liked our date or something like that. I really enjoyed that. And they take a little while to respond, right? And now you're like, why aren't they responding? You're starting to spiral. You're calling your friends. You're like, I don't understand. It went so well. Oh, I don't understand why they're not responding. Why aren't they reaching out?
Where
And then checking to see if it's read or exactly. Like every time you get a text message, you're like, is that them? And then disappointment when it's not. Like, so this like hyper awareness of what's happening. It can show up in another way in a relationship too, of somebody's late coming home after like a work meeting, and you start to spiral about it. Like, what does it mean? Why are they late? Like, why didn't they call me? Why, did something happen on the way home? It could be about safety, could be about, are they doing something behind my back? All that kind of stuff, that anxiety, that very hard to sit with, you kind of ruminate about it. That's more of the anxious attachment. So how it could show up in surrogacy is, same thing with text messages. I just sent them that message about the baby kicking, like a lot this last hour. Why didn't they respond? Like, are they like worried I was like doing something to make the baby kick? Do they think something's wrong? Are they like upset that I told them that because like she feels bad that the kicking's in my stomach? Like, like maybe none of those things are happening. Like, it could literally be absolutely nothing. It could just be the person was in a work meeting or doing something else. But the thoughts of why I'm not getting the response I needed in that moment, it starts to spiral the person. Then there's avoidant attachment, and that's the one where emotion is a lot. You feel pressure to respond or to fix someone's feelings when someone has an issue, and so for them it's just easier to avoidant, right? So take a step back, get some space. They're more independent, less wanting emotional connection, or emotional connection is just harder to come by. So in a relationship, it can look like the person who doesn't text back right away, right? So I'm not really sure if this relationship is going well, and they're a little eager. So I'm just, instead of responding and saying, I'm kind of busy right now, let's talk later, they just ignore, step back. I don't want to deal. It's too much right now. Or if there is like a conflict in a relationship, something to the effect of, hey, I thought you were gonna, call me last night and you never did. And, instead of, oh my God, I forgot, I'm going to apologize right now, which is like more of a secure thing, right? Like this was not a great thing for me. Let me call right now, or at least send a text saying, you're right, I should have. I'm going to call you as soon as I have some time. It's more like, oh,
that's uncomfortable. I don't want
I did mess up, and I don't even know what to do with this. So just going to put it away. I'm just not even going to think about it right now. And so that is more avoidant in surrogacy. That could show up if, someone's more just putting like the thumbs up, or, hearting something and just kind of not like adding any extra flavor to it. If there is a conflict, it's kind of like being very short in your responses, like not wanting to really deal with it, or just wanting to ignore it for now until you can't anymore. It's the person who doesn't say, I'm spotting because like I don't want to deal with those feelings that might come up with that, or are they going to blame me, or so I'm just not even going to say anything until I know more. It's just an avoidant of uncomfortableness of that the relationship between the two people, I'm trying to think, the vulnerability between two people that might come up. So
it's almost like a fight, flight, and freeze.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just I don't know what to do, so I'm just.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's so nuanced because you can say, oh well, so the person who's being very controlling, they must be anxious, right? And maybe, but maybe not. There's a difference between like anxious and controlling. So anxious would be more of the effect of, I know I'm bothering you. I know I keep asking, but do you have enough prenatal vitamins? Like, I'm sorry. I know, like I'm asking a lot. Like, I really know. Like, I'm so sorry, and like over apologizing kind of thing. Versus, are you sure you have enough? Because you need to have enough, and you need to be taking them. More matter of fact. So that is a little bit more of, I need to be in control versus anxious.
We'll get right back to the show, but I wanted to take a moment to let you know that for the past 18 years, we at Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions have had the honor of walking alongside women who didn't just dream about making a difference. They said yes to helping someone else's dream come true, yes to helping create a happy family by becoming a surrogate. Whether you're just curious about surrogacy or ready to take the next step, we'd love to support you. You can download our surrogate compensation guide or schedule a quick 15-minute call with our education team at createahappyfamily.com. Our agency's promise is to give you the autonomy to choose the family you help and set your compensation as you promise to give a parent the greatest gift one can give, a child of their own. It's okay to have questions. This is a big decision. But if you've ever wondered whether surrogacy might be a fit for you, this is our invitation to find out. All right, let's get back to the show. Based off of those attachment styles, what do you wish more intended parents and surrogates understood about each other emotionally before beginning a journey with those things in mind?
I mean, I think it would be great if they kind of knew like what type of person, how they relate in relationships in general. So are they someone who does respond to text quickly? Are they someone who writes a lot? Are they someone who over apologizes, who asks a lot of questions, who needs constant check-ins? Or are they someone who wants to kind of live their own life, do their own thing, and please just trust me, I got this, right? So I think if you come to this as an IP and you've had a lot of trauma, and you've been through a lot and you're very anxious about letting go of this control, I think it's really good if you're set up with someone who has a secure attachment. Everyone of course wants a secure attachment, but
Sure.
Definitely not an avoidant person, right? Because what's going to end up happening is that IP is going to push that person away, and it's going to make it even worse, right? So although you don't want an anxious, it almost would be a little bit better because at least they're all on top of it, over apologizing all the time, and it does create a little bit more anxiety in the situation, but it also is relatable, and they're talking a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas, and with the avoidance, I mean, again, like that can almost seem transactional, but sometimes it's not. So if you think about like maybe an IP in China, right? Their culture is a little bit different, so they are more respect boundaries, don't overstep. So that could seem aloof or that could seem avoidant, but it's not necessarily. So again, these are nuanced. So I think knowing, first of all, their background, someone's background, like a little bit, and then how they communicate, how they like to communicate is important. If there is things that come up, do they want to quickly get on top of it and talk about it together? Or does one person want to just take the lead, reach out to the doctor, figure it out, and then come together, right? So I think just how involved do you want to be in all the conversations is important to know.
Yeah, for sure. In our application, for both intended parents and surrogates, one of the things is what type of relationship are you looking for? And it's I love one of my favorite things. I had a surrogate who she was so upfront and honest about it, and I was like, this is so great. She said something along the lines of, I have 5 kids and I'm a teacher, and it's not that I don't it's not that I'm trying to avoid communication. It's just literally, if you text me during the day, I'm not going to be able to get to it until after school, and
Right.
even then it's only for this select time because of the 5 kids. But please know, if there is an emergency, I will absolutely make that my priority. It's just, if you text me on, at 10 a.m. and you're like, hey, what are you craving today? I'm probably not going to get to it until 7 p.m. And I was like, that's so helpful,
Yeah.
and that's so honest. And that does nothing but set you up for success on both sides.
Right. And the thing is, it's hard because some people don't know what they want, right? Everyone wants this fantasy of we're going to be best friends, but that doesn't work often because once they start to get to know each other, maybe they just don't have a lot in common.
Sure.
And two, if something comes up, an issue, that friendship now all of a sudden is a little more fragile, right? So again, communication is so key in that, but not everyone comes to communicate. Some people, again, do the avoiding, or some people are overly anxious about it. If you're thinking about like an IP who is more anxious and reaches out like at, I don't know, 9 p.m. at night about something and doesn't, and GC's asleep and doesn't respond, like that person could spiral the entire night, right?
Sure.
So just kind of knowing a little bit about yourself to express like, hey, I'm a late night person, so you might, is it okay to respond late night? Oh, thank you so much for telling me. I am out by like 8. So, if you say anything after 8, you're not going to hear back from me till the morning. But I promise I'll say something in the morning, right? Just even like little nuanced things like that can make a big difference in the relationship, because even if it wasn't intentional and someone didn't respond back, now that person already has this like ugh feeling of, I'm was it because she was sleeping or she just didn't want to talk, So
They've
I
created a
think
whole
just
story. There's a whole,
people,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
For sure, for sure.
It's a vulnerable position to throw people into an intimate setting so
Yeah.
early on.
What would you say are maybe some common mismatches in expectations between surrogates and intended parents that maybe show up mid journey? So you are kind of past that honeymoon
Hmm.
phase. What would you say have you seen kind of are maybe the most common?
How much updating they want,
Mm,
how much, information they want. And it's hard to know up front how much you're going to
mm-hmm.
want, or even if it changes. So maybe the IP says, we love to know everything, so we want a surrogate that does write novels, that is constantly giving us updates, and she
Sure.
means it, because maybe her first journey that's what she wanted, but now she has an infant, right, or a child or something to take care of, because if it's her second journey. And so there's this mismatch, because now it's actually overwhelming. Like, I don't want the novel, right? I don't want all that. And so now the surrogate's left with like, but that's what I thought we were going to have. And so
Uh-huh.
who am I telling this to? From I think one thing people don't realize from a gestational carrier point of view is they go into this, right, with often a hope of like some kind of friendship, right? Like, they're the star of the show, they're getting a lot of attention, and they are in the beginning. But then, once we're kind of midway, if nothing is happening, it kind of drops off a little. People kind of just move on with their life. But the thing with the gestational carrier that's different this time is, in her pregnancy, everyone was asking about it. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was like excited for the baby to be born. That's a big shift, right? Like,
Hmm.
grandma doesn't care so much anymore. It's kind of like, oh, cool. Husband's maybe a little bit annoyed, once in a while. It's not anymore like about you, about the
It's
baby that's going to
different.
come. It's
Yeah,
different.
it's
And so
different.
for
Yeah.
someone who expected to be in this like very like open communication, that's like a stark difference than what she expected, right? And so then
Sure.
that's tough for her. And so either she's going to become maybe overly anxious about it, and maybe they didn't like me, or they don't, maybe I did something wrong, or maybe she just, starts to do the avoidant thing. It just kind of like, okay, well, I guess that's that, and I'm not going to give them so many updates, and kind
Mm-hmm.
of pulls back, in a way to say, well, then I'm checking out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When things like that happen, how do you suggest how would you suggest handling a reset of the relationship in a way that's maybe just non-defensive?
Yeah. Hey, I've noticed that we don't talk as much. And, I thought maybe we should catch up, on like a FaceTime for a little bit, and then just kind of talk about like what's going on in our lives, so I can feel more connected again. And then during that conversation, you can say, I would love it if, I could reach out a little bit more and get more feedback on like how you're feeling about things. But, if that's too much, just let me know. And then maybe the case manager can step in that sense. But I think just having a conversation one to one, over, not over text, not over the phone, where someone's juggling 10 things, is really important to get that connection back. I mean, obviously in person would be amazing if you can go to an ultrasound or do something like that, but that doesn't always work, But I think a lot of times it's also just about, you're not communicating as much as I need, and I don't want to press you because, like, also you're holding my baby, right? Or like if it's that way, and it becomes this game of, I don't know how much to say. I don't want to like let her know that I'm like thinking these things, because then she's going to think I don't trust her, and it's not that I don't trust her. I just need more information. So it's a really sticky situation. I think the best thing you could do is to try to come together and talk about this. And I think what would help surrogates too is to set up ahead of time that, hey, sometimes like communication drifts happen in relationships, in these kind of relationships, and it doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just means that, things are busy and and like, so I want you to know if that happens, if like you start to feel like something doesn't feel right, or you're starting to get anxious about something, or you're starting to feel like you want to pull back, just let us know so maybe we can talk about it together, right? Like, see the early signs. And oftentimes if you look, you will see signs. You'll see text messages getting slower. You will see the like the gestational carrier maybe saying things like your baby as opposed to this little baby girl, you can almost see it in the language a little bit, right? Of how they are taking a little bit longer to respond to things, being shorter in the answers. These are all signs that maybe there's pulling back. And then the opposite is if you start to see more over apologizing, more like very long explanations for things. I'm so sorry I didn't pick up the phone. It's because my child like fell on the playground and like bumped, their head. And then I had to like, it's like, okay, just my child fell on the playground, or whatever. So I think you can usually start to see signs that maybe someone's feeling a little bit uncomfortable in the relationship, but most people don't pick up on it until the conflict hits.
I think also there's kind of, and you've kind of already said it, where there are kind of those natural, you
Ebbs
know,
and flow.
ebbs and
Yeah.
flows, especially in part of the journey, right? Like at the beginning, it's, okay, we're doing all these things. We're going to medical screening, we're getting the psych evaluation, we're doing legal, we're, now we're getting medication, now we're doing a transfer. Like there's so much that's happening. And then that first little bit, like when you go to the OB, there's not a whole lot happening. You get your once a month, appointment, and you're just kind of living life for a good period of time. So it is this, there's a natural dip in going from update, update, update. Now we have this to there's not a whole lot to say. Just
Mm-hmm.
there's just naturally not a whole lot to say,
Mm-hmm.
which I think some of the advice that's been given before has been, that's that great part about, you took the time to build a relationship, if that's what you're looking for, outside of just baby and
Yeah.
outside of just that. And it is, hey, saw that funny show that you and I were talking about,
Right.
or hey, how are the kids, or hey, what's for dinner, and oh, we saw this recipe, and it's that part of the relationship and not just IPGC.
And it's hard too if you're an IP that doesn't know much about pregnancy. Let's say you're a gay couple who never really was around pregnancy before, and
Mm-hmm.
your guys are like talking about everything in the beginning, like we said, like the honeymoon. It's like everyone's busy doing screenings and the next step, and then all of a sudden there's like this lull, and it's like, wait, what happened to the GC? Is she over us? Like, where
Sure.
it's just nothing's happening, absolutely nothing is happening. So I think, yeah, again, it's like trying to know ahead of time what the flow of things typically is, and then moving on from there, knowing as much as you can too about the other person. I think one good thing that gets skipped a lot is the joint session, right? A lot of times people don't do that joint session in the beginning. They'll do the psych eval, and maybe the IPs will have a consult with the mental health professional, but often that joint meeting is skipped. But I'll tell you, you can learn a lot about someone during that joint session, especially if that person has a partner, like the gestational carrier has a partner. You get to see how they relate to that partner. You get to see, just different nuances. You really get more of a feel for like who they are right off the bat, which can tell you a lot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's for egg donor and surrogate solutions, it's a requirement, that
Mm,
joint session. It's just part of our own, like, nope,
yeah,
this is something that is, like you said, there's such benefit to it
that's
that it's
fantastic.
it's
I love
worth
that you
it.
guys do that.
Yeah. And yes, I completely agree. I think there's so much that you can just witness on your own, in just watching each other, and there's great questions that are being asked during that it gives you opportunity to, I always just say, it gives you just a good solid foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and then and moving forward from there. When it comes to that anxious attachment, where someone is seeking that extra reassurance, or they have that fear of connection, what, and I know you've kind of, I know you've already alluded to, let's find a way to talk about it, and things like that, but maybe what are some more subtle, just helpful
Yeah,
ways to support,
it's a great
you know
question. So for someone who is anxious, when you start to recognize that they're an anxious person, I think the best thing to do is to let them know the structure of the communication. That's always very helpful if they know ahead of time what's going to happen. So I know nothing's really happening right now because we are in the second trimester and it's pretty slow. So what we're going to do though is we're going to check in with you every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Or that way, if there's like just a lull of communication, instead of overthinking, it's I know even if I am like getting ahead of myself and this overthinking, like because I sent a text and all I got back was a thumbs up, I already know on Tuesday at 4 p.m. we're gonna check in, and that relieves so much pressure. And then maybe for that person who's more avoidant, who doesn't want to have so much of that check in, it could be a more to the effect of, we're gonna reach out when we think it's like a good time to check in because something has happened in the journey, or there's been an ultrasound, or something is going on that we want to like talk about it. But other than that, you're good. We're okay. If you have anything you want to say to me, you can say it, but I'm not expecting a text from you or expecting anything. And also then when you do reach out to that person who's more avoidant, it's just keeping it short. Don't over explain things. Were you able to schedule that appointment? Great. What time is it? You don't need to talk about everything else. Do you know what's going to happen during that appointment? Like what's happening that morning? Are you going to feel okay? Are you going to have caffeine that morning? None of this stuff is necessary, right?
Sure, absolutely. So you've said this before with the secure attachment style, that it sometimes can be overlooked because they're not reactive. It is sort of there's trust, there's go with the flow, we're giving the benefit of the doubt, just all of those things. What's important to remember about supporting someone and staying connected with them when they are secure?
Yeah, so just I think for people who are secure, I think they really do a good job taking it out on their own, right? They don't need so much support on the side from the agency. They're really good about handling it themselves. So they're quick to, if there's an issue, they're quick to bring it up because they're not afraid to bring it up. They know that they can hold their own, and they also know that the other person can handle whatever they're dishing out, or that they can handle a rupture if something happens. So instead of you know leaving it, so okay, let's say I'm going to give you an example. Someone is out with their friends, a gestational carrier, and her friends are drinking, and so like there's they're having dinner and there's like wine on the table, and on Instagram the IP saw it, is like freaking out, where are you, what's going on? Then all of a sudden the agency's calling, what's going on, freaking out, right? So someone who is maybe secure might might address it and not feel like, well, f them, I'm not responding now, I'm out to dinner.
Right.
They might say, okay, look, I can see how that could be upsetting, I'm just gonna just give me a minute, call either the IP or the agency, whichever feels the best, and just say, hey, totally understand why, someone was stressing about that. I'm just out with my friends. I'm not drinking anything, I promise, and I'll give them a call tomorrow, right, to smooth it over. But all is good. It's very secure in that they understand why the person might be upset, and not thinking that the person is like attacking them, but more that they're just only anxious in what they saw, right? Whereas someone who's maybe anxious is, oh my god, that wasn't me, I'm going to have my friends call and tell you that it wasn't me, right? Like I need to like really show them, I need to prove it to them, I need to justify everything I'm doing, right? Because I feel so bad and I don't want them to hate me now, and I don't want them to think I'm not a good surrogate
Right, and we're
now, and
spiraling, and yeah.
right. And then for the avoiding one would be, well, get off my back. Like I am allowed to live my life, right? And just kind of like, so I'm just not even going to respond. Let them think whatever they want to think, and then I'll deal with it later. So I think so if you're secure, right? Like you have that understanding that not everyone operates the same way, and that's okay. And you can, try to fix it as best you can, but you don't have to over apologize, and you don't have to avoid either.
No, that's perfect. Is there ever a goals, kind of the word that I would use, but is there ever a way that you can move that anxious or avoidant to more secure, or is it more so you just understand that
Yeah.
attachment and then that's how you
I
operate?
think it's hard to shift it within a surrogacy journey.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time they're doing a sibling journey, it could have
Sure.
shifted by now because now so much trust has been built from that
Uh-huh.
first one. In relationships, though, they do, you can what's called earn secure attachment, which is it's basically when you are with someone who's pretty secure and you start to get that safety. Safety with vulnerability, safety with not knowing what's going on. So like, vulnerability, if you're avoidant, like you start to learn that it's okay to be vulnerable. You're not saying anything wrong. You're not going to be left. And then for someone who's very anxious, just trusting that the person's there, that they're safe. Then you can kind of like earn it. It's not that you're earning it because like you're working towards anything, but necessarily it's just kind of like, that's what's called earned attachment.
Right. You're
Um,
just becoming familiar.
yeah, but you have to think about too, like it could show up just transitionally. So if the gestational carrier is maybe having an issue with her own partner, let's say, where she's now like finding things out that like are very hard for her to hear, and now she's starting to feel anxious about that relationship, that can then, present as over attaching to the IPs because she's looking for
Mm,
security somewhere, right?
sure.
Um, so like again, it's so nuanced, it's so hard. I think so just understanding your own patterns is really helpful because then you can take some time before responding or look at your own patterns of why am I not responding. It's like, it's a little bit self-reflective in a way, of trying to understand both perspectives. But again, when we are in stressful situations, this is when attachment issues show up the most, right? When we're under stress. And so that's why it's helpful for the agency to know also a little bit about how they are, so if something happened and you know that your gestational carrier is someone who needs space to process it, then you kind of stick with the facts and you give them space. You don't need, do you want to talk to our therapist? Like, how are you feeling? Like, let's, like give them a minute to breathe. And then if it's someone who is going to be like very, what are the IPs doing? Are they thinking about, like, are they mad at me? Are they, that's the person who, let's have someone talk to you for a little bit. Let's keep you in the loop, often. So it's a lot about knowing the kind of communication that person resonates with and what they need. And again, it's nuanced to know, so you have to really like kind of suss it out in the beginning. Again, you can kind of see clues based on how they respond, how quickly they respond, how much they respond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. When it is those moments of high stress or disappointment or, just everything is emotionally charged, what would you say are maybe some good just go-to phrases that can kind of just help keep that relationship grounded?
So if it's an anxious person, very much validating. I know this is really hard. You're doing a great job. Everything you're doing is great. Nobody is putting any blame on you. Like just a lot of reassurance, right? Checking in often. Anytime there's an update, checking in, even if there's no update, saying, "Hey, we may not have an update from the doctor, because it's the weekend for a couple days, but I'm going to check in with you on Sunday at this time," right? Just again knowing that someone is, they're not forgotten. Nobody forgot the situation. They still are on board with her. I think that's an important piece for the anxious. For the avoidant, again, it's, I know this is really hard. We're here if you need us, and I know you like space, so please just know we're here if you need us. I am going to check in with you, on Monday at 12 if we haven't heard back, just to kind of just to say, hey, we haven't heard back. Sit tight, right? Just to kind of like let them know, but not to then ask them how they did this weekend, how they're feeling. Just again, this is what your goal was to just, and I think ask the gestational carrier or the IPs what they want in that situation. Ask them, do you want me to, tell you every step of the way what's happening? And if they say yes, please, then do it. Don't make overpromise and then not. And if they say no, respect that. Then you don't need to tell them every single update.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you're in a match and you're, feeling emotionally activated, what are maybe some questions that you can ask yourself, in those moments to get yourself grounded? And I think even maybe while you're sitting there and reflecting, hearing this and thinking, okay, how do I react in those conversations? What are
Mm.
some good, just reflection questions that you would ask yourself to kind
Yeah,
of maybe figure out how you land in
right.
these?
What I think the best question, why am I behaving this way, whether it's ruminating or stepping back,
Yeah.
why am I spiraling right now? Is it really something they said? Did they really attack me, or am I reading into that text message? Um, is it because I have silence right now? And then to question it. Does silence mean they don't like me? Does silence mean something's wrong? No. And ask your friend, what, because I sometimes, like, when you're in it, you can't see it, right? But when you're out of it, or someone is talking to you, they're like, no, that's fine. Like,
Right.
you didn't say anything wrong at all. Don't follow up, because, like, the person who's anxious is going to now follow up, right? Did I say something wrong? I'm going to text them and say, did I say something wrong? Or I'm going to explain something again. I'm going to, because, the way I wrote that, I can see that they might have taken it out of context. So I'm going to, like, now rephrase it.
Right.
Whereas the
Right.
friend could
Right.
be like,
No, you're good.
yeah, they're good. I can read that perfectly. It doesn't sound, like anything weird, and they will probably respond when they're ready. Um, so yeah, I think just getting perspective. I think people who know themselves. So again, you can always ask yourself the question, like, how do you respond when you are in a new relationship and that person's not texting you back? And if it's you kind of get cold and, well, forget it, then I'm just not, I'm blocking them, or I'm staying silent. You're more on the avoidance side. You're going to need the more space. If you are the person who is going to spiral, you overthink every single thing, you are wondering why they sent 5 emojis instead of 6 since last time they sent 6, you are the anxious type. So you get clues.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. For someone listening to this who is about to enter a match, what's one thing that they could say or do to build a good, strong, open connection?
Be honest about that part. So if we're talking about attachment, I like over communication. I text a lot.
Yeah.
I want to call a lot. I want to know everything that's happening. You will not bother me. I promise you will not bother me.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
more the merrier. Versus someone who's going to say, like that teacher, I'm busy. Um, I care so much. If anything
Yeah.
happens, I promise you will be the first to know. But also, you probably will not hear from me often,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
set that expectation from the front so everyone understands. And then also, it's important to talk about how, again, kind of, you said the same thing with, like, how would you want bad news delivered? What do we want to do when there's conflict? I think someone might say, if there's something that's happening in the pregnancy, I want my, like, it's, let's say it's 2 IPs, I want my husband to handle it. Call him first, because if you call me, I'm going to flip out. He knows how to tell me in a different way. So, um, kind of just knowing how you want to do it. Or if there's a conflict that happens, like one person doesn't agree about something, oh, we want to do the amnio, and the gestational carriers, like, I know I said I would, but I said it for these certain things, and it doesn't feel like this is warranted, whatever. How do we come together with that, right? So, like, do you guys want to each separately talk to the doctor, or do you guys want to talk to the doctor at the same time? Like, what's going to be the most helpful for you? And if you kind of know ahead of time what's going to be helpful, but again, sometimes you don't. So just asking those questions, what's going to be the most helpful for you right now? Is it to talk to them, or is it not to talk to them? Instead of saying, well, we need to work this out, so we're all going to talk together right now.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a great way that, from an agency perspective, where when you're clued into these types of, just behaviors, being able to handle, situations like that, or, exactly to your point, hey, I'm going to call you on Monday at 12 if I haven't heard,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping things short and simple, or
Yes.
checking in often, and, just things like that. I feel like that's super helpful, especially just in
Yes.
supporting that the IP and GC relationship as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then I'm actually curious, like, for your journeys, which, like, where would you have labeled yourself in this?
Oh, good question. I was a pretty secure type. I was a pretty, go with the flow, um, that kind of thing. I was also, my first journey, um, parents had a kiddo and had done surrogacy before. So they were also really secure in, hey, like we kind of know what's going on, and you've carried a baby and we haven't, so whatever you did before, do it again. Like, so they were pretty secure, and I think their security put me at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just kind of go with the flow. Second journey, I think, again, I was still secure, but I did have to do a lot more communication because mom was a little more nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that.
Right. And so you knew it. So I'm guessing when she would reach out, like maybe with over information or wanting over, a lot of
Uh-huh.
information, I'm guessing you didn't feel that she was being controlling. I'm guessing you understood it as anxiety and
Very much. I
right.
knew
So
where it
that's
was coming
secure.
from.
You're not taking it on. You're not thinking it has something to do with you, anything you did wrong or
Yeah.
anything you're not doing. You understood that it was that person who was having, not like an issue, but a hard time and needed reassurance.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that can sometimes feel really hard for, like, I know I got really super excited when there was a positive pregnancy test, and I got really super excited when it was like, okay, anatomy scan, have you started, decorating a nursery? And I remember she was like, no, I've decorated a nursery before, and then there wasn't
Right.
anything after, so
Yeah.
I haven't. And I remember there was this part of me that was so sad
Yeah.
of, initially of like, oh, but I want to celebrate this with you. And then it was, I can understand why. I can understand why you wouldn't. It was so great because my coordinator, she was over here celebrating with me.
Right.
And so I was able to kind of get that from her,
Yeah.
which was really nice.
I mean, think
But
about how that could have shifted in so many ways. Like, so you were able to, you said something that was
mhm,
for her maybe triggering or, just felt like, I don't want to know the updates, right? You felt a little sad about it, but it's not like you sat there and said, great, now she's going to hate me the rest of the surrogacy because, right? And then you also even found a way to get what you needed, but from someone else, right? As
mhm,
opposed to internalizing the whole thing, not asking for what you need from someone else, now thinking, you did something horrible, letting that be like a rift between the relationship, right? Because
yeah,
now, fine, well, I guess I won't give her any updates, right? Which is not
sure.
necessarily what she said. So it's just kind of like, again, I think what happens is people will internalize, the other person's behavior, and
hmm
think it has something to do with them. And if they can step outside of that or have someone help them step outside of that
hmm
to see, the nuance of the situation and that
hmm
nobody is saying anything about them or what they're doing, I think it's super helpful.
Yeah.
And I think so. I think like, gestational carers can use a lot of reassurance in that sense because they don't always understand what the other people have been through or, why they're not
Sure.
celebrating as much or all
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah, for sure. I will make a caveat, a little asterisk. My last journey was in 2020, so there was a pretty obvious
Mm.
anxiety ridden
Yeah.
situation happening, and so there was a lot of a very obvious, I will be communicating with you lots.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yes, to your point, ultimately, yeah, I was able to. I think there's a really great point you made. It was recognizing I wasn't getting what I thought from intended mom, and being able to
Mm-hmm.
find a way to get it in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's just great advice just across the board, but I think also in that surrogate IP relationship and figuring out, okay, it didn't go this way, and not totally shutting it down, but pivoting.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And really in surrogacy, you have to pivot all the time, right?
Oh yeah. In
Which,
the infertility world, you're pivoting all the
yeah, which
time.
is
So yeah.
constant.
For
Right.
sure, for sure. Well, is there what would be, just if you could give your top advice for any woman who's starting the path of surrogacy, or for intended parents who are about to build their family in this way, what sort of advice would you want to give them just in that day one?
Yeah. Well, for the gestational carrier, don't take it personal. And then for the IPs, I think to know your style so that you get the right match ahead of time. Really know what you want. Don't just, yeah, I want to be friends. I want good communication. What does good communication mean? How are you when your boss says, hey, I want to talk? Are you like, okay, great, I'm available Tuesday, at this time and this time? Or are you, oh my God, what do they want? I need to call them.
Sure.
I, right. So like, what are you like? Would it have been helpful if the boss said to you, "Hey, I want to talk. It's about blah blah blah," and you really needed that? Now you know a little bit about your style. So if the gestational carrier is saying the doctor needs to call me later, why does the doctor need to call you later? What's going
Right.
on? Why did you not schedule the appointment when you were supposed to do it for Tuesday? Why did you move it to Monday? So explain. So say, oh, I know that we had said I was going to do Tuesday, but my husband couldn't take off, so I'm doing it Monday. Great.
Right.
So some people need that, some people don't.
Yeah.
And it seems like such a small thing what I'm saying, right? It's like such a small nuance. And it is like maybe one of those times doesn't make a difference, but 10 of those times, right? It adds up and it starts to erode the relationship without
Mm-hmm.
you even seeing it. It's so subtle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. No, I think that's huge right there because yeah, it can feel easy to sweep a little, like you said, that nuanced thing and just kind of let it go. But yeah, over time, it builds up, it builds up, it builds up, and
Right. Like
you might not even know you're
you don't
having
notice.
this resentment.
Like remember that first example right now what I just said is like she was supposed to schedule for Tuesday, but she scheduled it for Monday, right?
Uh huh.
She says, "Oh, it's scheduled for Monday at 3 p.m." And now the intended parent doesn't is like, "Okay," but is like circling in their mind about like why, but doesn't want to be invasive at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like, okay, they figure it out. It's fine. Like nobody says anything. She gets over it. They have the appointment. It's all fine.
Yeah.
But now there's now this like already this like unease
Uh
about
huh.
what things mean. So now the next time something gets shifted, again, that question now is a little bit heavier because again, why was it
Mm.
shifted, right? So
Mm-hmm.
again, these little things, but if she just said, "Oh, okay, no problem. I'm just curious. Why was it changed?" "Oh, the doctor's actually not going to be in that day." Done.
Great. Great. Yes, the simple explanation was enough to not let you spiral and then proceed to
It
make up this
carries on to the
huge,
next
massive
thing.
story and
Yeah.
then, yes, and carry on to that. I love that imagery of making the unanswered, it just feels heavier
Mm-hmm.
and heavier. And then all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
it's too much. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Exactly.
that's amazing. Well, I really, really just appreciate your time, Rachel. My last question for you, and it's a fun one. For anyone who knows me, they know that I am never without a cup of coffee in my hand. Coffee and I have a bit of a codependent relationship.
Mm.
And so I always love to ask the question, what filled your cup today? Literally or figuratively, what has been the thing that has filled your cup?
Hmm. Today, it's so early in the morning already. What's filled my cup? Okay,
I can give you
I,
yesterday.
okay, right. No, this morning what filled my cup is I work out very early in the morning, and so
Oh, good for you.
I have like one of those Soul Cycle bikes. I took a Soul Cycle class, and
Oh,
a
nice.
really great song came on that filled my
Ooh,
cup because I was actually like vocally like singing, and I don't really do that often when I'm on it because I'm just like in my
nice.
zone. But I was like, yeah, bring that song on.
Yes. What was the song?
Oh, it's so embarrassing. It was
No.
like by Celine Dion. Um,
Yes. No, we love a Celine moment.
yeah, it was like I'm
Yes.
alive, and I'm like, oh, I love this
I
song.
am alive. Yes. Oh no, Celine is timeless. She
Oh
speaks to
yeah,
all
I
of
mean
us.
but some people like don't like her, but I'm like, gosh, when she sings, I'm just like, oh, this is the best.
It fills you. I
Yeah,
mean, she has
yeah.
presence.
Okay, so that
Yes.
filled my cup this morning.
I love that. No, that's amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. And for anyone who just wants to hear more from you, how would they get on your mailing list?
So if you go to rachelgoldbergtherapy.com or my Instagram is Rachel Goldberg Therapy, so pretty easy. You can find lots of ways to see my blogs, things I write, follow me,
Yeah,
um, yeah, all of that.
that's
Reach out to
perfect.
me. I'm always open to, talking to anyone.
Yeah, that is so perfect. And we will have all of that in our show notes as well. So thank you again, Rachel. Super appreciate it. And yeah, this has been fantastic.
Thank you.